Okay. So, we will be studying a new chapter, the second chapter, that is biological classification. What are the things that you have to study in this chapter? As the name suggests, we will be talking about the different types of classification system that has been developed from ancient time to the recent times, right. What is classification? This is something that we have already understood in living world. As far as classification is concerned, it is nothing but what? Arrangement, right. Arrangement into groups and subgroups. That process or that phenomenon is called as classification. We have talked about taxonomical classification, etc., right. So, in this chapter, we will be talking about types of classification, and by types or systems of classification, what we understand, we will be talking about certain words like 2-system classification, 3-system classification, etc., right. So, this will give us an idea as far as classification is concerned. It is not something that this is or this has been done or it has started only from the recent times. It is from ancient times that the scientists from time to time they had tried to classify the different organisms that are found in this nature. At the proper, during ancient times, or those workers that were related to primitive worlds, what they have done is they have given a classification that was called as 2-kingdom classification. And as the name suggests, what do you understand by that word 2-kingdom classification? It talks about what? All the organisms that were present in this world are just divided into two kingdoms, right. And what are the 2 kingdoms? Either it has to be an animal or it has to be plant, right. So, after 2-kingdom classification was proposed, we have seen certain drawbacks in the classification system, and so it was a time to develop a new classification that was called as 3-kingdom. And gradually the kingdom or classification system that we accept now is nothing but a 5-kingdom classification system that was given by R.H. Whittaker, right. However, we have something called as a 6-kingdom classification also, right. But in spite of the 6 classification system, what do we use now is only the 5-kingdom, because 6-kingdom classification is still under research. So, the classification system that we use is 5-kingdom. What does the 5-kingdom classification say? It says that all the organisms that are present are divided into 5 kingdoms. And what are the 5 kingdoms? Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, and Animalia, right. So, this is the proper classification, and in this chapter each and every kingdom in details is something that we are going to do. Out of the 5 kingdoms, as far as animal kingdom and plant kingdom is concerned, we have 2 different chapters. So, what is the content of this chapter? Only till fungi. Is the point clear? So, we are going to study about 3 kingdoms, that is Monera, Protista, and Fungi in details, and together with that the last part of the lesson talks about viruses. So, we will be talking about virus, and we have 3 of them: mycorrhiza, lichens, and virus, but mycorrhiza is no longer required. So, we will be talking about lichens and viruses, right. So, let us talk about that. So, what you do is write just a moment. Before starting to write the notes, the first part of the lesson also talks about different types of scientists and their contributions, different books that they have written, etc., etc. This is in the form of a PDF that has been already forwarded, right. So, you have to read it from that PDF, and after you complete reading that PDF is the part that we are going to write now. Is the point clear? The first part of the lesson talks about different scientists, their contributions, certain books that they have written, etc., etc. So, we are not going to write it down again because it has been forwarded, right. Okay. Heading, just put the heading kingdom system. So, what is the first kingdom system that we have to study is the 2-kingdom system. So, write about it. Do you remember who proposed this? Yes, very good. So, we know the two kingdom classification was given by Linnaeus. What did he do? He has divided all the organisms or placed all the organisms into just two kingdoms, that is plants and animals, but we have criteria for classification on the basis of what? If suppose he has seen an organism, what he has decided? Either it will be an animal or it will be a plant, but on the basis of what? On the basis of the most important thing would be movement, right, whether like or the process of making food. If suppose what he has done is, if he has come across an organism and he could see that organism could be moving, so he said anything that moves would be an animal. Is the point clear? So, these were the three conditions or criteria based on which he has given the two kingdom classification. Mode of nutrition. So, according to him, if an organism can move, then obviously it will be an animal. If it cannot move, it will be a plant. Second is presence or absence of the cell wall. I think we understand this, right? If cell wall is present, then that organism would be considered as what? Plant or animal? Obviously, it will be considered as a plant, because one of the major difference between a plant cell and an animal cell is the presence of the cell wall, right. So, what he has seen, the second criteria is, if it had a cell wall, it has to be a plant. If it did not have a cell wall, it has to be an animal. And obviously, the third one is mode of nutrition. If it could prepare its own food, then it will be a plant. If it cannot prepare its own food, then it will be an animal. So, there were certain demerits of the two kingdom classification, and what are the demerits? This classification did not distinguish between prokaryotes and eukaryotes unicellular and multicellular photosynthetic and non-photosynthetic. So, the two kingdom classification was proposed by Linnaeus on the basis of these 3 points. What was the demerit? That it could not classify, or it did not classify it properly, right. There was no mention about the words unicellular, multicellular. He just said either the organism would be a plant or it would be an animal, right. He did not have any information about prokaryotes and eukaryotes. However, I think we understand the word prokaryote and eukaryote, right. So, either the cell could be a prokaryotic cell or it could be a eukaryotic cell. One of the major difference between prokaryotes and eukaryotes. There are 4 things that we need to study, na? From cell point of view, a plant cell and an animal cell, a prokaryotic cell and a eukaryotic cell. Difference, one major difference between a plant cell and an animal cell, presence or absence of the cell wall. One major difference between a eukaryotic and a prokaryotic cell. There are so many differences, but the most important one that we generally talk about is the presence or absence of the nucleus, right. If the nucleus is present, it would be called as what? Eukaryote or prokaryote? Sure? Or you are confused? Obviously, it will be called as a eukaryote. If the nucleus is absent, it will be called as a prokaryote. Nucleus present and nucleus absent means what? What is the nucleus? Brain of a cell. What does it have? Genetic material. So, if a cell has a nucleus, so obviously it will have its own genetic material. Prokaryotes do not have nucleus. Does that mean it does not have its genetic material? Are you understanding the question? A cell with a nucleus, a cell without the nucleus. Both of them will have genetic material, or only one will have the genetic material? Both will have the genetic material. So, no doubt the nucleus is absent, but the genetic material is present. In a eukaryotic cell, nucleus is present. Inside the nucleus, you have the genetic material. What is the difference? The difference is just the covering, right? You have all the stuff, all the genetic material covered with the nuclear membrane. That forms a complete structure that would be called as a nucleus. You don't have the membrane, it would be considered as a nucleoid and not a nucleus, right? These are certain things that we will be studying in cell. As of now, coming back to this, so limitations, not a proper classification. What are the examples? Some examples that we could cite is about euglena and slime molds. Euglena, since both of the examples would be having both plant-like and animal-like characteristics, right. So, euglena, we will be writing it down. Euglena will have a plant-like characteristic, it will have an animal-like characteristic also. Similarly, slime mold will also have a plant-like characteristic and an animal-like characteristic also. So, if they have both the characteristics, they cannot be classified as to be an entire plant or an animal. There will be something in between, yes or no? If euglena has a plant-like character, you cannot consider that to be a plant because it has an animal-like character also, right. But what did the two kingdom classification say? The organism has to be a plant or it has to be animal. They did not say anything about these creatures. Is the point clear, right? So, these creatures did not have any place in the two kingdom classification. Where will you place them? It cannot be called as an animal, it cannot be called as a plant also. So, that is also considered as a drawback of the two kingdom classification. Is the point clear? Something about euglena. What are the points about euglena that you know? First, what is euglena? It is something that you all have studied, right? So, what is the point that you all remember? First, what is euglena? Heard something called as protist, belongs to the kingdom Protista, right. So, euglena is a protist, right. If furthermore, if you want to hear, it is an example of a photosynthetic protist, right. Second point about euglena, it forms a link between plants and animals, means what? Plant-like nature, animal-like nature, right. So, two kingdom classification talks about all the organisms being placed either in the animal kingdom or in the plant kingdom. However, we have certain exceptions where organisms like euglena, slime molds, etc. cannot be placed in the plant kingdom, neither it could be placed in the animal kingdom. Some of the characteristics that they show, euglena shows a plant like character, it shows an animal like character. Similarly, slime mold also shows a plant like character and an animal like character. As far as euglena is concerned, it is a protist. What type of a protist? Photosynthetic protist. And if you are talking about slime molds, this is also something that you all have studied before. Slime molds is an example of fungi like protist or decomposer or consumer type protist. Sorry, decomposer. Yeah. Classification done by Aristotle. Aristotle is also related with two kingdom classification. He has also done the same thing because he has divided the organisms into just two groups, right. So, it is not like this that since we have written that the two kingdom classification was proposed by Lichens, obviously proposed by Lichens, but there are so many workers of the two kingdom classification. So, generally the ancient scholars, the ancient scientists, they were related with the two kingdom classification. This is something again we are going to do at the starting of plant kingdom, right. I think this is understood. So, since we have drawbacks, the two kingdom classification needed modification. So, what it was developed was a three kingdom classification. So, heading likhiba. So, three kingdom classification system, this is all that you have to know. We will be writing the four kingdom classification system also. It was proposed by Copeland. What is the fourth kingdom? So, the three kingdom classification was proposed by Haeckel. What is the third kingdom? Protista. Since we are talking about the third kingdom, what about the first two kingdoms? This kingdom classification system talks about what? Third. Means what? Already there were two of them. And what are the two? Obviously plant and animal. Two kingdom classification talks about two kingdom, the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom. This is the third one. So, you had first not first, you have the plant kingdom, animal kingdom as first and second, this is the third. And after that what we have seen, the development of the fourth kingdom is Monera. So, first animals, next plants, next we had Protista, next we had Monera, right. So, these are the 4 kingdoms. Now, what is very important is who has proposed it, and second question could be asked, Protista is the kingdom of unicellular eukaryotes. Monera is the kingdom of prokaryotes. If you remember, what we have discussed is 2 kingdom classification did not categorize or did not differentiate between unicellular, multicellular, prokaryotes, eukaryotes, nothing, right. So, this is a more better way, right, where you have seen the classification between eukaryotes and prokaryotes. All the prokaryotic organisms that are present has been put under just one kingdom, that is Monera. Whatever prokaryotic organisms are present in this world, they belong to just one kingdom. So, Protista is a kingdom of and Monera is a kingdom of. Monera is a kingdom of prokaryotes, Protista is a kingdom of unicellular eukaryotes. So, okay, do not get confused on this. So, whenever we talk about organisms, right, just remember this, when we talk about organisms, either it would be a prokaryotic organism or it could be a eukaryotic organisms, right. This is one point. Again, organisms could be unicellular, it could be multicellular also, yes or no, right. Organisms could be prokaryotic, eukaryotic, it could be unicellular, multicellular also. So, prokaryotes will also have unicellular organisms, exceptionally they will be having certain multicellular organisms also. Similarly, eukaryotes will also be having unicellular organisms and multicellular organisms, yes or no. In this group also you will see unicellular and multicellular, in this group also you will see unicellular and multicellular. Is the point clear? When we talk about prokaryotes, give me one example of a prokaryote. Bacteria, right. So, is bacteria the only example of a prokaryote? No, we have different prokaryotes. Bacteria is an example of a unicellular prokaryote or it is an example of a multicellular prokaryote? Obviously unicellular, right. So, what I wanted to explain is these groups would be consisting of both unicellular and multicellular, right. However, as of now what we know, if you are talking about prokaryotes, either it is unicellular or it is multicellular, it would be belonging only to Monera. Both unicellular and multicellular, everything together would belong to just one kingdom, that is Monera. Is the point clear? However, in case of eukaryotes, it is not the same. In eukaryotes, again there is a differentiation between uni and multi. Unicellular eukaryotes only belong to Protista. What about the multicellular eukaryotes? They would be belonging to the rest 3. What are the rest 3? Fungi, Plantae, Animalia. Is the point clear? Right. So, when we talk about organisms, organisms could be unicellular, multicellular, it could be prokaryotes, it could be eukaryotes. All the prokaryotic organisms belong to just one kingdom, but all the eukaryotic organisms, they would be belonging to how many kingdoms? All the eukaryotic organisms, I am not talking about this one and this one. We have 5 kingdom classification. Out of the 5, 1 kingdom belongs to the prokaryotes. What about the rest 4? It belongs to eukaryotes? Yes or no? You have 5 kingdoms. Out of the 5 kingdoms, 1 kingdom belongs to prokaryotes. What about the rest 4? It belongs to eukaryotes. But we know eukaryotes are unicellular and multicellular. Unicellular eukaryotes will belong to 1 kingdom, that is called as Protista. Rest 3 of them belongs to Fungi, Plantae and Animalia, right. This is what I wanted to say. If you talk about organisms, so we have Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae and Animalia, right. So, Monera would be a kingdom of prokaryotes, all this together would be kingdom of eukaryotes. This one would be unicellular eukaryotes, this tree would be multicellular eukaryotes. Is the point here, right. So, question has been asked in the MCQs as far as on the basis of 5 kingdom classification, how many kingdoms belongs to eukaryotes? So, that is a question that has been asked, 4 kingdoms, right. And if it is asked how many kingdoms belong to unicellular eukaryotes, 1 kingdom. How many kingdoms belongs to multicellular eukaryotes, 3 kingdoms, correct? Okay. Just continue under 4 kingdom classification itself. Okay. Up till 4 kingdom classification, what are the kingdoms that we came across? Monera, Protista, and initially there were Plantae, Animalia. So, we will be talking about the 5th kingdom classification or 5 kingdom classification. Which kingdom is left behind? Fungi, right? So, what led to the formation of 5 kingdom classification? The placement of fungi, right. Next, if this is over, heading likhiba 5 kingdom classification. So, 5 kingdom classification was given by understood. What is the 5th kingdom? Fungi. It was based on certain points like cellular organization, body complexity, mode of nutrition, ecological role and reproduction. As far as cellular organization is concerned, what we understand, whether the organism is a prokaryote or eukaryote, because you have different kingdoms assigned to prokaryotes and eukaryotes, right. Similarly, body complexity understood, either it is a multicellular or it is a unicellular. Mode of nutrition, autotrophs, heterotrophs, right. Reproduction understood. What about ecological role? As far as these words are concerned, phylogeny is something that we have already studied, right. Phylogeny means what? Do you remember the difference between the two words taxonomy and systematics that you have studied in living world? Taxonomy and systematics, we have talked about that, right. What we said, classification, taxonomy and systematics are synonyms or considered as synonyms, right. You have a taxonomical classification or you have a classification based on phylogeny. If phylogeny or evolution is concerned, that would be a phylogenetic classification. If evolution is not considered as a basis of classification, that would be a taxonomic type of classification. So, by the word phylogeny, we understand we are talking about evolution, the forefathers, right. As a result, you come to know about the interrelations between organisms, right. What about the word ecological role? I think we have spoken about this before also, right. Ecological role talks about the role of the organism as a producer, consumer or decomposer. Is the point clear? Whatever organism is present in this world, either it would be a producer or it would be a consumer or it would be a decomposer. So, that is what is meant by ecological role. Right. So, we have 5 criteria on the basis of which 5 kingdom classification was given. However, if the question is asked what is the basis of 5 kingdom classification, the basis of 5 kingdom classification from the note itself, we understand there are 5 bases. But from entrance point of view, the question that is asked is what is the most important basis of 5 kingdom classification? It is mode of nutrition. It is only on the basis of mode of nutrition that fungi has been assigned to a different kingdom. So, out of all this, the most important or the only thing that we can talk from MCQ point of view is mode of nutrition. It is mode of nutrition on the basis of which 5 kingdom classification came into existence. Clear? Okay. So, next is we understand that we accept or the 5 kingdom classification, but however, we have something called as 6 kingdom classification also. So, what we have studied up till now, according to 5 kingdom classification, what are the 5 kingdoms? Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, Animalia, right. Apart from this, we have another kingdom. So, finally, we have a 6th kingdom classification. Any idea about the 6th kingdom classification? Have you read this before? No? 6th kingdom classification. So, there is another kingdom. What happened in 6th kingdom classification? We have read Monera to be a kingdom of prokaryotes. If it is a kingdom of prokaryotes, then all the prokaryotes, for example, bacteria, I think you have heard something called as cyanobacteria, you have heard something called as archaebacteria, etc., etc. So, all the prokaryotes belongs to Monera. So, bacteria and archaebacteria shared the same kingdom according to 5 kingdom classification. However, according to 6th kingdom classification, bacteria and archaebacteria were differentiated. Archaebacteria were assigned another kingdom, and finally, we had the 6th kingdom classification. Is the point clear? 5 kingdom classification, bacteria and archaebacteria placed together. 6th kingdom classification, archaebacteria belong to another kingdom. Clear? So, what are the things that we have to study from this? Over? Okay. So, what are the points that you will study? The 6 kingdom classification was given by, first point. Second, what is the criteria for classification? 5 kingdom classification, how many criteria were present? 5. What is the most important? Number 1, that is mode of nutrition. 6 kingdom classification is based on the study of what? It is based on the type of ribosomes, right? Have an idea about ribosome? What is a ribosome? Cell organelle. Membranous or membraneless? Membraneless cell organelle. What is the function of ribosomes? Synthesis of proteins, protein factory, yes or no? How many types of ribosomes or classification of ribosomes that you have heard? 2 types, 70S and 80S, right? One major difference, another major difference between a prokaryote and a eukaryotic cell. Prokaryotes have 70S type of ribosomes, eukaryotes have 70S as well as 80S. Right. So, as far as 16S ribosomes is concerned, it is talking about one particular type of ribosome. Any idea about the letter S? Heard about 70S and 80S, right? What does S signify? It talks about what? Sedimentation coefficient, or it talks about Sedberg's unit. We will be talking about that in the chapter called as cell. As of now, it is one type of ribosomes based on which this kingdom classification system has been developed. Right. So, the question that is asked is 6 kingdom classification is based on 16S ribosomes. Okay. Next, the word or the concept of domain was given in the 6 kingdom classification, or who has given the concept of domain? Carl Woese in his 6 kingdom classification. So, that word domain is also important. Domain in general means what? Super kingdom. Remember this taxonomic hierarchy, right? We have talked about this. What is the highest category? Kingdom. According to 6 kingdom, you have another super kingdom that is called as domain. So, another meaning of domain could be a super kingdom, above kingdom, right? According to the 6 kingdom classification, all the living organisms belongs to how many domains? 3 domains. And what are the 3 domains? Archaea, bacteria and eukarya. Archaea obviously consists of what? Archaebacteria. Bacteria or the domain bacteria consists of the kingdom Monera, and whenever we talk about Monera, it is not only bacteria that belongs to Monera. We have 8 types of Monera. All the 8 types belong to Monera itself according to 5 kingdom classification. According to 6 kingdom classification, 7 types of Monera belongs to Monera, 1 has been placed into Archaea. Because as I said, according to 5 kingdom classification, Archaea and bacteria were included in 1 kingdom. It is in the 6 kingdom classification that they were divided. Is the point clear? And after that, the third domain is eukarya. Eukarya talks about what? Eukaryotic organisms. And all the eukaryotic organisms, the 4 kingdoms belongs to eukaryotes, right? However, we know the differentiation between unicellular eukaryotes belonging to 1 kingdom and multicellular eukaryotes belonging to 3 kingdoms. Clear? Unicellular eukaryotes belongs to Protista, multicellular eukaryotes belongs to the rest 3, fungi, plantae and animalia, right. So, we are almost done. Just one more point, we will write it down and then, okay. So, we will be studying in details so, this is what we are going to study according to 5 kingdom classification. What are the 5 kingdoms? These are the 5 kingdoms. Now, the point is, why are we writing Monera first and Protista second, or the question is, why in this sequence? All the organisms are put into 5 kingdoms. Any kingdom could be considered at first. We could have written the opposite way around also, Plantae, Animalia or Animalia, Plantae, Monera, etc. in a haphazard way. But we are following a particular sequence. It talks about what? It talks about evolution. You have lower organisms, you have the highest organism. Lower organism or the lowest organism would belong to which group? Monera. Highest, obviously the animal kingdom. Is the point clear? So, we understood the reason behind putting these into a sequence, right. Now, we have two diagrams. According to 5 kingdom classification, we have 5 kingdoms. Now, which one is correct? So, in both the charts, what you see? The 5 kingdoms. In both the cases, the 5 kingdoms has been written in a sequence. What do the arrowhead talk about? It talks about evolution. So, according to you, which one is the correct representation? The first one or the second one? First one talks about 5 kingdoms, second one also talks about the 5 kingdom. First one has started from Monera, the second one also has started from Monera, so almost the same. The first one talks about Monera is the ancient, the primitive kingdom. Here also the Monera is the primitive kingdom. But as far as evolution is concerned, which one would be the correct representation? The first or the second? The second one. Why not the first one? Because what does the first one say? It says that Monera is a group of lower organisms that has been evolved into Protista. Protista has evolved into fungi. Fungi became plants. Plants became animals. Can that happen? Plants cannot become animals. Is the point clear? So, if this sequence has to be followed, we understand as if at a time all the plants got converted to animals. It's not something that we see, obviously. So, what is the correct form of evolution is this one. You have the lower organisms that got evolved into Protista. What happened? Okay, that got evolved into Protista, and from Protista the different organisms further got evolved. So, that is the reason Protista is considered as the largest, or is it is the kingdom with largest number of organisms, or it is a kingdom with diverse numbers of organisms. Why are we using this line? If you talk about a plant kingdom, what is included in the plant kingdom? Only plants. Yes or no? If you talk about animal kingdom, only animals are included, but if you are talking about Protista, it is a kingdom that will have animal like organisms, plant like organisms and fungi like organisms also. So, out of this is the only kingdom that has diverse organisms. All types of organisms are present in this kingdom, right. So, we understood 5 kingdom classification, we understood the evolution. In the next class, we are going to start with Monera, right. Thank you.